All right, chief,
Okay.
here we go. So, our wonderful ambulance agreement. We pay, as taxpayers, a sum total of a whole lot of money to the county commissioners. And it goes in their purse. And I'll get to you in a minute, Brent. And you bill, let me get this straight. So if I'm in a car accident and an ambulance picks me up, you bill my car insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm home and I have an accident, you don't bill my house insurance.
No, you have to do medical insurance.
Because see, this is where a snafu's coming out. Because there's been a couple insurance companies that have called me and they have asked. I don't know who sent them or who contacted them, but they said, we hear you have a taxpayer-funded ambulance agreement in the county of Hillsdale. And I said, we do. We have this wonderful thing called an ambulance agreement that the taxpayers pay into. And money comes out of that ambulance agreement to pay for ambulance rights. But if there's a car wreck, the taxpayers' money doesn't pay it. Insurance companies are paying it.
Oh.
So the question comes, as an insurance agent, insurance company, I shouldn't say an agent, company, the men with money, say, why are we paying whenever the taxpayers are paying?
So what the taxpayers are paying is what I would call a ready-to-use millage. So, it costs so much to have the equipment. So to have it available, that's what the millage is really going towards. Then when it's actually used, there is additional fees that it costs us to use it. And that's where the insurance companies come in. It doesn't surprise. I have never had an insurance company call me and question it, but and I've never heard Tim prior to me or Jason prior to me say anything that they have. So, but there's no doubt probably somebody's questioning it, and that's why they've called you. But they are supposed to be paid for. I mean, if somebody has insurance, they should be covered and they should be paying. I mean, it's just like a hospital. They pay for the hospital. Why wouldn't they pay for the ambulance service? They're not paying. They're paying for the actual use of it. So if the millage money is supposed to cover not only buying the equipment but for the actual use of it, then we're not collecting enough. And I don't think anybody wants to pay more taxes if they can help it.
Here's, I guess, an issue I have with that, Dave. Because this township pays as the fire department. Now, I can't speak for anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
We pay for the ambulances. We pay for upkeep on ambulances. We pay for personnel in the ambulances. We pay for the fuel, the tires. We pay everything. Between the four entities, we pay 100% of that ambulance. Am I correct?
No.
Or am I mistaken?
You're mistaken. So you definitely pay a good portion of it, but that's why we have the medical billing, because the medical billing is all part of the revenue that comes in on the budget. So all that is classified into how we survive. So every year we look at what you guys are paying, what Rollins paying, Woodstock, and the Village of Addison. All four of you are paying your portions into it. That is all calculated into the budget. However, also calculated into the budget is the anticipated revenue from the actual use of the ambulances. So even furthermore, this one might get you, not to change the topic on you, but for the longest time, nobody paid for the use of the fire department. So the taxes were paying for everything the fire department does, but it was, probably 2 or 3 years ago, they voted in to start charging for the use of the fire department. So we're doing fire billing now too. I wasn't a big proponent of it, but that's what the fire board decided to do at that time. So we're just following what they're giving us to do. So people are actually getting billed on fires as well.
So what is our taxpayers what is the taxpayers paying for?
Basically.
Are we just sending money to the county and it just disappears?
No, we're getting, no, so you are sending it to the county, and the reason you're sending it to the county is, this is my understanding of it, is there is a county-wide millage, so it has to go to the county. I don't believe it can come to the individual township because of it being a county-wide millage. So, but there's the formula that's in place, and we are getting what we should be getting to cover your township. We don't have any complaints on that, so. And I did all the homework you asked me to do, so I got papers here that I can definitely share with you, but I got what we charge for the billing, I got what we've done for ambulance stats, and I also got the mutual aid agreements that you wanted, so we have a mutual aid agreement with Reading, we have one with Somerset and Hudson as well, to cover your whole township. Now, I can tell you, one of the things that in doing these stats that I really found interesting, and just give you an example. So in 2024, out of the calls that we had in Wheatland Township, there was only 3 medical calls that we were unavailable to respond to because, well, actually there was only 2 that we were unavailable to respond to because we were on other calls. However, in the same year, 126 times we went to other portions of Hillsdale County because the other ambulances weren't available. So Wheatland Township is actually in really good shape, probably one of the better shapes in the whole county as far as ambulance coverage, the way it's set up right now.
Well, then let me ask you this question. How many times have we sent our ambulances that we pay for as taxpayers here in Wheatland Township to cover Reading emergency?
That's in that 126. I mean, that's not all Reading. Some of that's Hudson, some of that's Somerset. And of all the work I did on this, which I put a few hours into this, the one thing I said to myself, and you just asked it basically, what I didn't do is say, I got 126 times we left outside of Wheatland Township covering Hillsdale County. I didn't break it down to how many times was Reading, how many times was Somerset, how many times was Hudson. I think it's probably going to be Somerset the most, Reading the second most, and Hudson the third. Is probably how that's going to shape up. I can easily get that. It'll take a little while because I got to manually do it. Because all I have record of is how many times we did mutual aid. But I can go up and physically look up all 126 reports and come up with that number.
How many times has Reading been to our area?
Once. Once in probably the last 3 years. And that wasn't one time that we called them. We were assisting them in North Adams with our ALS ambulance. They had a BLS ambulance. They were there, and we had a call down the road on North Adams Road, and we had our second ALS ambulance en route to that, but since they were right there in North Adams and not too far down the road, they went ahead and went to it. So that was the only time that I can think of that they have done that. But like I said, there's really 3 times in 2024. Now I will tell you, so far in 2025, there's been 4 times. All of them have been Hudson so far that have come and helped us, but we have been outside of Wheatland Township 27 times so far in 2025.
So our ambulance is spending a whole lot of time outside of our area.
And we do definitely get called out of our area a lot more than what we call in for help. Now,
So-
I gotta tell you, I've included numbers where we get canceled. So a lot of times what happens is Reading might call us, for an example, to say the city of Hillsdale or the city of Jonesville. But then they get an ambulance available before we get there and we get canceled. So those numbers are in there. I mean, that 126 counts all of those too. So it's not like we technically handled all of them, but that's how many times we've been requested. Again, I could manually go in and get some finer details of that, but now, keep in mind, if we do transport, then we get the billing for the patient.
I would like to know how many times a breakdown between Somerset, Hudson, Reading.
Okay, I can get that tomorrow.
Okay. I also want to know how much you have received from the ambulance agreement for the last 3 years from the county out of our ambulance agreement.
Okay, those are readily available too.
And Brett, I wanna know how much money we have sent the county out of our ambulance agreement.
Well, you don't have an ambulance agreement with the county.
With the county.
You don't have.
Not with the county, but we send money to you through our taxes,
The taxpayers of the county,
which is us.
the,
I wanna know how much this township, the taxpayers of this township, because it does go through this purse, to your purse, how much we sent for the last 3 years
I will,
to the county.
I will tell you right now, Dave, it's less money than what Addison has received.
I wanna see it.
You'll have to contact the county treasurer to get that exact figure. They're the ones that keep track of those tax revenues.
I will do that.
Just like your township treasurer keeps track of revenues here. And she could tell you how much she had sent for ambulance millage money to the county over the last 3 years.
Well, we will find out.
Yeah, as I stated, I don't have any complaints about how that works out. We feel that we're doing okay as far as what we get in revenue.
Dave, do you have, I can't get my iPad to pull it up. Do you have your contract with you?
Yeah,
And maybe Dave, if you've got it there, if you look at the last page of that contract, if you've got it, that we signed with Addison,
Mine's not signed, but
do you have the payment breakdown there?
oh, I don't know if that's similar or not, that's,
No, that payment breakdown is not there. On that one. Yeah. It's the one with that has the 3-year guaranteed payment.
oh, I
figures
know
on
what
it.
you're talking about, yeah, I don't have that one, okay.
Because the last time we did the rental, or the agreements with the ambulance agencies, we estimated what that revenue was going to be over the next 3 years, and we guaranteed them a payment from that millage money. And that was based on the percentage of taxable value that each township or each municipality contributed towards that anticipated revenue in 22, because that was down in
That sounds-
23,
sounds about
24,
right, yeah.
yeah, because it was,
Yeah, right, because it started over at 25, so.
it started in 23, this contract started in 23, ends the end of this year.
Okay, I thought, okay.
Yeah, the current contract with all of the ambulance agencies ends December 31st of this year. And Dave, I'm glad you're here tonight. I had a conversation with Dennis earlier today. Asked him to get a time put together for the ambulance agencies for us to, Commissioner Collins and I to meet with you guys, as we discussed at Commissioner meeting today of Commissioner Collins and I working with the ambulance agencies to work on the renewal of those contracts. I will tell you, Commissioner Benzing thinks that we should put out an RFP for that ambulance service for the county. And that was discussed at our commissioner meeting today.
well, this board thinks we shouldn't even be paying the county, that we ought to be paying Addison directly, because we do it with our fire.
Well, Dave, here's the issue with the millage that is approved. Your board did not vote to put that millage on the ballot.
Oh, I understand that, but
Okay. Now, the county down the road could vote to not do that, and you could then decide as a board to put that millage on the ballot. But that then is there just for your township.
we would have no problem with that. We have discussed that openly here.
But Dave, you still gotta have mutual aid agreement with Hudson and Somerset and, REU.
I'm positive I would have mutual aid agreement with Hudson and Somerset. REU, I'm not really sure.
Right. Okay, and so there's still a possibility that you're gonna be going out of Addis, or out of Wheatland Township to provide service to those other areas. And
Oh, under a mutual aid agreement,
out of
yes.
your mutual aid agreement. And Dave, regarding the insurance, your homeowner's insurance doesn't provide you any medical benefit coverage. Okay, you mentioned earlier, you're getting some calls from insurance companies regarding why they're billing for medical bills, you know, and I don't know the situation I do know though that if you send a ambulance or you send a first responder to an auto accident and there's no medical necessity for them to be there, the auto insurance company will deny any payment for that. Okay, somebody hits a deer, you send a first responder, there's no medical injuries, auto insurance is not gonna pay that whatsoever. It's not a needed bill,
Right, and we don't even bill it.
okay? There's some discussion in the contract, with some of the other agencies. I believe the current contract does allow the agencies to bill for any transport that they do if it's medically necessary. There are some agencies that believe that they can't bill, even, let's say they bill your insurance company, you have a Obamacare health insurance plan that has a $7,900 deductible, you haven't met your deductible yet, your health insurance company says you've got to meet your deductible before we pay. There are some of the agencies that won't even bill the individual for that amount that should go towards their deductible. And I don't know, Chief, what you do in that regard.
So the deductibles are still required because you have to pay your deductibles. What we do is, once the insurance has paid their portion of it, and it's usually almost never 100%, we write off the difference of what they didn't pay. So that's how we've done it for years. We do it that way in all jurisdictions that we cover. So, but yeah, I mean, how we're running the ambulance service and doing the billing is not changed. It's been done this way for as long as I can remember. So, and when we, well, in Leininger County, we actually have individual township millages for the ambulance. So it's different for your township because of the countywide. Leininger doesn't have a countywide, so that's where the townships have went on their own and done their own millage. But when we went out and asked for that millage to be passed, that was part of the wording we put in there. You won't be billed anything that the insurance company doesn't pay.
And, you know, and the ambulance agencies that cover Hillsdale County have requested the commissioners to put that millage before all of the citizens of Hillsdale County and all the voters. And that was done last year. Building on from prior years.
Yeah, this is for 3 years, right?
It's a, I believe a 6-year millage.
Oh, 6 year, okay.
Right, and so, what we've done, you know, because of how those payments have been calculated back to the townships, if you take, and how those payments are calculated coming back to the townships, take the revenue the county receives, reduce off of that the amount that's captured in the city of Hillsdale, the city of Litchfield, the city of Reading, the city of Litchfield for their TIFAs.
Jonesville, actually. I think.
Yeah, city of Jonesville. Jonesville, Litchfield, Reading, Hillsdale for their TIFAs, LGFAs, which is worked out to be about 1.5% of the total amount. And then that's the amount that's then left to distribute back out to the agencies. The last time we did the negotiations with the ambulance agencies, the county said, we're gonna guarantee you this amount of payment for the next 3 years. And we broke those figures out based on what we anticipated that county tax revenue to be from the ambulance millages. We said we're gonna hold back 1% of that figure every year in that calculation in case we were overestimating that anticipated revenue. We've used some of that to provide some of the drug boxes and other things that we've bought for the ambulance agencies that they didn't have to buy out of the other revenues that we received. But then, the year that we set that calculation, we took the percentage of the taxable value that each municipality made up of the county's total taxable value. And Addison, just covering Wheatland Township, I think the last time we did that, it was about 7.9%.
Somewhere.
And I'd have to see that actual calculation, Dave, and it's on the calculation sheet that's part of that contract. So that percentage of that millage revenue then came back to Addison Township for the ambulance service. I will tell, and Chief, I'll tell you, just looking right now, because when we had done that calculation last time was right after the windmills were put in here in the township, and so your taxable value compared to the other townships in the county was higher than it is now. If you look at the 2025 taxable value, I think Wheatland Township is only about 5.5% of the total taxable value of the county. So if we did that calculation today, that percentage of revenue is gonna be down to the 5.5%, which is what is being paid in from Wheatland Township towards that millage.
Okay, well, all I'm saying is, there's other people looking at it. As one company said, it sounds like a conglomerated mess with too many fingers in the pot. And I agreed. And I said, if I had my choice, we want to have it. Because I think there is too many fingers in the pot. Unfortunately, we're stuck with it, in my opinion, until the next time it comes around for a vote. And I hope to God it gets voted down. Because there's too many fingers touching it. We can pay directly to our fire department. We don't need a middleman. Pure and simple. So, that's my opinion, and it's going up to somebody else. And I think mutual aid works great, unless you're receiving it. Because we have mutual aid agreements with reading. Reading never comes to us. We always go to reading. So that means a mutual aid agreement don't mean squat to reading.
Yeah.
But it means something to Hudson and something to Somerset, and I agree, because Hudson and Somerset, I do see them rolling through.
Yep.
So a mutual aid agreement with those two entities, I fully would agree with.
Yeah, and my agreement's separate with them.
So
With
I-
Somerset and Hudson.
I would agree with Hudson that we don't need reading, it's a mutual aid agreement. So, it's my opinion, I've been expressing it, and I know it's getting heard.
Yeah, so, and that's part of what the problem has become between Hudson and Reading. Right now is over, Hudson was going to Reading more than Reading was coming to Hudson. I don't know, has that been resolved?
The last I knew, those two entities were still discussing and talking on that. And one of I think one of Jim's issues in Hudson was because they were dispatched on a call and then got called off before they got there. And as Chief Dave said, if they're dispatched and if they transport the individual, they're then the agency that then sends the billing to Medicare, Medicaid, the health insurance company, whoever that is, for that call. But if you don't, you burn gas, get halfway there, and then get called off. And some of that could be because the agency, another agency ends up with an ambulance closer, they respond. But sometimes, and Chief can tell you, you get an elderly individual that falls, you get a medical first responder, show up, get them, assess the situation. Well, we don't need the ambulance, and so the ambulance gets called off, but they were dispatched.
Well, as a taxpayer in Wheatland Township, it really burns my butt when people tell me, whenever they're just outside of Hillsdale, that they got picked up by Addison ambulance. And I always have the same response every time somebody says that. That's a long ways for an ambulance to go, and if it's life-threatening, you're probably not going to survive one of these trips. I think the county commissioners need to get Reading ambulance service under control. And if you can't, find somebody new. Because it's our ambulances that are running. And they're running a long ways. And I have to agree with Hudson, and I understand why Hudson's mad. It gets really annoying whenever people come all the time. Reading wasn't available. Reading wasn't nowhere around. Figure it out. They cover, what, 3/4 of the county? They cover a large section.
As far as area,
Yeah.
56%.
and they can't cover half the time.
I think it's 56%. I've got that. If I could get my iPad to come up
Because
with it,
it's-
I've
it's
got
our-
a map that shows that.
It's our taxpayer money that's going into fuel and wear and tear on the ambulances. And if an ambulance goes down, our butt's the ones that have to pay for it. We pay for it. Not the people in Fayette Township or wherever else. It's Wheatland Township, Woodstock, Rowland, and the village of Addison. We pay for it. And it's just really getting to be really annoying. All right, anything else from the county commissioners?
At our last meeting in